Greetings, dear viewers of the Craftsmoto channel. In this long video, by numerous requests from viewers and subscribers, I will introduce you to the history of the Kawasaki company. Naturally, we will focus mainly on motorcycles. Grab some snacks and your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's begin. Friends, if the word Kawasaki only makes you think of motorcycles, maybe ships and trains, then you're not very well informed. At the moment, Kawasaki Heavy Industries is one of the largest corporations in the world. The company produces ships, industrial robotics, trains, tractors, engines, airplanes, helicopters, military equipment and weapons, jet skis, ATVs, and motorcycles. In addition, the company is involved in industrial and infrastructure construction, as well as engineering in the space industry. And it all began back in 1878 when Shozo Kawasaki founded the Kawasaki Tsukiji shipyard in Tokyo. Shozo was born in Kagoshima to a family of kimono merchants and became a merchant in Nagasaki at 17. At that time, it was the only place in Japan open to the Western world. In fact, from the 17th century until the end of the 19th century, Japan was a completely closed country to the rest of the world. 10 years later, Shozo founded a shipping company in Osaka, which went bankrupt when his cargo ship sank during a storm. In 1869, he joined a company that transported sugar from Ryukyu and conducted research on sea routes. Meanwhile, he developed a strong interest in modern shipbuilding. In April 1878, with the support of Masayoshi Matsukata, the Deputy Minister of Finance, who was born in the same province as Kawasaki, he founded the Kawasaki Tsukiji shipyard on land leased from the government. In 1886, the company was transformed into Kawasaki Dockyard Company, and its president became Kajiro Matsukata, the third son of Masayoshi Matsukata. In fact, it was the Matsukata family to whom Kawasaki owed its initial capital. In 1894, 7 years after the founding of Kawasaki Dockyard Company, the First Sino-Japanese War began, and shipbuilding in Japan experienced rapid growth. The company made a solid profit from building and repairing ships. After the war, Shozo turned the company into a joint stock corporation. Kawasaki was already nearing 60, and he didn't have a son to whom he could pass the company, so he chose Kajira as his successor. And this guy stayed in the position for 32 years until 1928. He expanded the company's activities, taking on not only shipbuilding, but also rolling stock and aviation. In 1906, after many challenges, Kawasaki, aided by United States engineers, built Japan's first submarine. A year later, the production of railway cars began, and in 1911, the company built its first steam locomotive, a tender-type locomotive. In 1918, Kawasaki started producing trucks. Sometime later, in 1931, a 1.5-ton truck was built based on an American luxury class model. And the following year, Kawasaki started producing Roco brand trucks and buses. In 1933, it also began building luxurious Roco passenger cars for clients such as the imperial family. And although the company stopped producing cars in 1942 by order of the War Department, which intended to shift production capacity from cars to airplanes, during that period, Kawasaki was one of the pioneers of Japan's automotive industry. Let's go back a little. While in London in 1918, Matsukata was extremely impressed by the use of airplanes in combat during World War I. That same year, he started an aviation department at the Hyoga factory. This happened just 15 years after the historic flight of the Wright brothers, when airplanes were still being built from wood and fabric. In 1922, the Kawasaki company built its first airplane at the Hyoga factory and conducted test flights. The Japanese Army, impressed by its flight qualities, adopted it as their first military aircraft, the Type Otsu-1 reconnaissance plane. By 1927, the Kawasaki company had already built 300 airplanes of this type. Let me remind you, Japan fought a lot until 1945. Military spending accounted for about 1/3 of the country's gross domestic product. In 1923, the Great Kanto earthquake struck, destroying city infrastructure. In Tokyo, bridges over the Sumida River collapsed, and Kawasaki built 3 new complex replacement bridges with equally intricate names. During this time, the company received orders from the Reconstruction Bureau and other Japanese organizations for up to 25 bridges, including those mentioned above, requiring 16,000 tons of steel. By the end of the 1920s, Kajiro Matsukata had made Kawasaki a leader in heavy engineering in the land of the rising sun. And this guy was also the first in Japan to introduce the 8-hour workday. In 1937, the aviation department became the independent company Kawasaki Aircraft. 2 years later, the conglomerate received its final name, Kawasaki Jukogyoka Bushi Gaisha, which means Kawasaki Heavy Industries. During World War II, Kawasaki Aircraft produced the Ki-61 Haiyan fighter, the only liquid-cooled fighter developed in Japan during the war. The Haiyan is known for its world-class flight characteristics, a maximum speed of 610 kilometers per hour, as well as the ability to fly in formation, even at an altitude of 10 kilometers. During World War II, Japan had the largest carrier-based air group, starting with 575 carrier-based aircraft, while the United States and British combined had only 220. In the war, the Japanese suffered heavy losses, especially in Manchuria against the experienced Soviet army. The island nation's territory came under United States occupation. A moratorium was imposed on the development of aviation, and in order to preserve at least something, Kawasaki had to urgently switch to a different field. These very events became the precondition for the development of engine manufacturing, and a little later, motorcycle manufacturing. Now that we've explored the context, let's move on to motorcycles. After the war, Japan needed affordable, reliable transportation. Demand was high and supply was increasing. So, by the mid-1950s, the market for miniature vehicles was divided among 150 companies. In this reality, you could either lead the industry with a top product or fade into oblivion. Initially, they started producing gearboxes for motorcycles. In 1949, the company chose to design its own engine, and within 2 years, Norris bicycles featured both 2-stroke and 4-stroke engines. However, selling spare parts to third-party organizations did not bring the desired profit. Around the same time, Kawasaki bought out the company of its former partner, the bankrupt motorcycle manufacturer, Meguro Manufacturing Company. Even before the war, they produced motorcycles under the Meihatsu brand and were one of the few who made motorcycles with a 500 cubic centimeter engine. In the United Kingdom, this model was mocked for its resemblance to the Birmingham Small Arms A7, considering it a cheap imitation of the latter. However, this motorcycle was distinguished by excellent quality, and Meguro was quite a major player in the Japanese motorcycle business. And so, in 1953, the Kawasaki conglomerate established a separate division called Meihatsu to develop its own motorcycles. And a year later, in '54, pilot models of the bike scooter Kave 2, 200 units, and the Meihatsu 60 moped with a hanging engine rolled off the assembly line. Mass production of motorcycle equipment began in 1957. The first serial model was the Meihatsu B7. In 1961, it was renamed Kawasaki B7. It was equipped with a single-cylinder 2-stroke power unit with a displacement of 125 cubic centimeters, a 4-speed gearbox, and a backbone frame. The machine accelerated to a record-breaking 82 kilometers per hour for its class at that time, and in endurance tests, it covered an incredible 50,000 kilometers without a single breakdown. A year later, the upgraded B8 model was introduced. And even though the motorcycles had excellent features, by 1961, Kawasaki was little known to the public and completely faceless in the world of motorcycles. Honda and Yamaha applied strong pressure. This situation needed to be fixed. First of all, they rebranded, abandoning the name Meihatsu. Secondly, they turned to the most effective advertising tool, racing. The company's management is betting on the Japanese motocross championship, since for now their goal is only the local market. And they don't see any point in investing in the expensive Grand Prix road racing. At the first competitions, a retuned standard motorcycle with a red painted fuel tank is used. Kawasaki takes the top 6 places in the 125cc class. It was a sensation. All Japanese motorcycle circles are talking about the red-cheeked Kawas. In the future, the company always paints race motorcycles green based on this experience. In 1962, a series of models appeared, equipped with 2-stroke engines ranging from 50 to 250 cc. However, the local market became too crowded. Kawasaki felt a lack of experience compared to other engine manufacturers. In addition, a crisis began in Japan. This pushed the company to explore new markets, and of course, the most attractive one was the American market. At first, motorcycles with single-cylinder 2-stroke engines and 4 or 5-speed gearboxes were exported. The road motorcycles were equipped with double seats, a horn, and turn signals. The racing models had extended fenders, off-road tires, and increased ground clearance. Kawasaki, during this period, created a whole range of machines that were based on the same parts. For example, the 90-cubic engine with a 5-speed gearbox was installed on as many as 14 different models. However, this equipment did not impress the spoiled Americans. Then, the company turned to Maguro's experience and exported the 250 SGT model to the United States, which had a single-cylinder 4-stroke engine with 18 horsepower. But even this motorcycle wasn't recognized. The next try was the 500 Maguro K2. The machine closely resembled the British Birmingham Small Arms, which was also unsuccessful. In 1966, Kawasaki really lost its mind, and they released the W1 model with an inline 2-cylinder 4-stroke engine of 650 C, which with a power of 50 horsepower, allowed it to reach an unbelievable speed for those times of 180 kilometers per hour. At that time, it was the largest model on the local market. In Japan, the W1 immediately became the best-selling model in the over 500cc class. This fact again drives the company's management to pursue the United States market. However, the model wasn't that perfect in terms of maneuverability and ease of handling. It lagged behind its British and American competitors, and as a result, failed again. I should also note that in 1965, the company debuted 2 new small displacement models. The light motorcycle Model 50 M10 with a PET power unit, which was mounted on a backbone frame. But the second new model, the 85 J1, looked noticeably more advanced technologically. The motorcycle featured an entirely new 82 cubic centimeter 2-stroke power unit with a power output of 7.6 horsepower. It featured a disc valve intake with optional electric starter and separate lubrication. The new lineup also included the off-road model 85 J1TR, which was fitted with aggressive tires and an unusually raised muffler. For international races, Kawasaki developed the 2-cylinder 124cc model KA1. This motorcycle participated in international competition since 1965, and only in '69, the rider Dave Simmons won the company's first ever championship title on this motorcycle. As for imports, the managers of the Japanese motorcycle manufacturer had to conduct real market research, studying the preferences of American consumers. It was found that overseas motorcyclists wanted more dynamic acceleration, lighter bikes, as well as better handling and safety when cornering. The result of this work in 1967 was a new model in the Kawasaki lineup, the A1 Samurai, with a 250 CE engine. The bike was equipped with a 5-speed gearbox and drum brakes. Its top speed was lower than its predecessor, only 161 kilometers per hour. At the same time, it only took 15 seconds to cover a 400-meter stretch. Excellent dynamics. That same year, Kawasaki released the 350 A7 Avenger, 338cc two-stroke, 40 horsepower, and a top speed of 175 kilometers per hour. The bike instantly gained popularity both in Japan and abroad. Kawasaki finally succeeded. And another debut model of that year was Kawasaki's first production motocross bike, the B8M, which was based on the same B8. Off-road vehicle popularity prompted the release of the F21M motocross bike in 1968. It was a major upgrade over its predecessor, with 238cc and 28 horsepower, versus the B8 meter is 125cc and 11 horsepower. It was the Kawasaki F21M that became the parent of a full-fledged family of motocross models. Its design was used in the 175 F3 model with a power output of 19 horsepower and in the 23 horsepower 250 F4 model. 2 years later, the lineup included 6 motorcycle models with different engine displacements, starting from 90cc and a power output of 10 horsepower, the GA4 model, and ending with the 346cc 33 horsepower, 350 F5. Kawasaki needed a superbike to surpass British Triumph and Birmingham Small Arms and complete its lineup. This issue was resolved in 1968. The H1 model debuted with a 500cc inline 3-cylinder 2-stroke engine, lightweight duplex frame, first ever production bike electronic ignition, separate lubrication, and unique exhaust system. On the left, there was one exhaust pipe, and on the right, there were 2 more. The model received a 5-speed gearbox. The motorcycle stood out for its performance, reaching a top speed of 193 km/h and accelerating to 100 in about 4.5 seconds. Kawasaki Aichichi had drawbacks too. The short wheelbase and strong engine would lift the motorcycle's front wheel during rapid acceleration from a stop. In addition, it was difficult to handle and consumed a lot of gasoline. However, all these shortcomings were more than compensated for by the incredible thrill the bike gave during the ride. The H1 model also earned the nickname Widowmaker among motorcyclists, since the bike's wild temperament caused the deaths of many inexperienced riders. In Europe, the Mach 3 was also enthusiastically received thanks to its striking appearance. The United States was no exception. Americans also loved the model. Until 1971, this family was expanded with motorcycles of various engine capacities, starting from the 249cc 32 horsepower 250 SS and ending with the 746 XCC 74 horsepower Make 4. As for the signature color of Kawasaki racing machines, the famous lime green paint was developed in 1968, and at the 1969 Daytona all-factory racing motorcycles were painted in it. It was a bold move, as green was an unfavorable color then. The 3-cylinder modification developed for racing competitions turned out to be quite successful, and in 1970 the New Zealand racer Ginger Malloy took second place in the up to 500cc class at the World Championship on it. Three-cylinder two-stroke machines in various versions were produced up until 1976. In 1973, Jerry Nixon rode the 750cc 750 to 3 American Motorcyclist Association championship wins. However, a fuel crisis was looming, and it was clear that the future belonged to four-stroke engines, particularly inline fours. In 1968, Honda introduced the CB 750 Super 4, which instantly outclassed the British School of Motorcycle Engineering, namely Triumph and Birmingham Smart. Kawasaki didn't lose their composure, and by studying their competitors' experience, they managed to design and mass-produce a motorcycle that was close to perfection. This happened in 1972. At the exhibition in Cologne, they presented the Z1 model, which surpassed the CB 750 in technical specifications. Its engine, with a displacement of 903 cubic centimeters, was equipped with 2 overhead camshafts instead of 1, like the CB 82 horsepower, and a top speed of 210 kilometers per hour. That year, Kawasaki created a new development department focused on motocross equipment. The KX 250 and 125 models were introduced, tested in local races, and began production in 1973. The development of the KX series continues to this day. For road racing in '74, a year earlier, the KR 250 and KR 350 were developed in the skilled hands of Cork Bollington and Anton Main. The KR actually dominated the Grand Prix 250 and 350 races from 78 to 82. In 2 classes, Kawasaki riders won 8 world championships, and in the Grand Prix 250, Kawasaki became the manufacturer's champion 4 years in a row. The debutante of '74 is the Kawasaki Z400. With an overhead valve, parallel twin producing 35 horsepower. In January '75, this same model was already rolling off American assembly lines. Kawasaki became the first of the big Japanese 4 to set up their own production in America. In 1976, in the lineup of 4-stroke motorcycles, the Z900 Limited appears, which received dual trumpet-shaped mufflers, alloy wheels, and a 2-level seat. Meanwhile, the 652cc Kawasaki Z650 debuts with a power output of 64 horsepower, featuring 2 overhead camshafts and a balancer shaft system. Large enduro off-road models and motocross bikes are also released. Racing technologies are applied to civilian use. In 1977, the Z1 model is updated. After increasing displacement to 1015cc, the motorcycle became the Kawasaki Z1000. For off-road, the Z200 was developed. Motorcycles with dual purposes were also upgraded. KL250. It got a single-cylinder, 4-stroke, 246cc engine with a power output of 21 horsepower. In 1979, the main news from Kawasaki was the appearance of the Z1 1300 with a 6-cylinder, 4-stroke engine with a displacement of 1,286 cubic centimeters and a power output of 120 horsepower. It used a liquid cooling system and came with a 5-speed gearbox. For the first time in Kawasaki's history, the motorcycle received a shaft drive to the rear wheel. This high-speed touring model quickly gained popularity. In the early 80s, the Big Four were swept by turbo mania. Kawasaki's turbo motorcycle concept with a 650cc engine was presented in 1981 at the Tokyo Motor Show. But the production model was still yet to come. A year later, the GPZ family was born with the GPZ 750 model. The new model received a more modern design with an integrated half fairing, engine changes, a new cylinder head, increased compression ratio, oil jets for cooling the piston bottoms, and an oil cooler, new suspension, rear aluminum swing arm with uni-track linkage, front pneumatic fork with anti-dive, plus other technical upgrades. Based on this model, they released the production turbocharged GPZ 750 turbo known as the ZX 750 Turbo in some markets. The engine was seriously upgraded so that it could produce 112 horsepower and 99 newton meters of torque, while still maintaining sufficient reliability. The Kawasaki ZX 750 Turbo set a new world speed record for road motorcycles, recording a speedometer reading of 235 kilometers per hour. The model was produced for only 2 years. It turned out to be too complex and expensive, and soon naturally aspirated motorcycles reached similar performance. For example, the legendary sports model GPZ 900R, introduced in '84, had liquid cooling, produced 115 horsepower, and accelerated to a new record speed of 243 kilometers per hour. As for racing, in '81 and '82, thanks to the efforts of Rob Mazzi and Eddie Lawson, Kawasaki won the American Motorcyclist Association Superbike titles on the KZ 1000J and KZ 1000S1. When the rules changed in 1983, Kawasaki introduced the new racing GPZ 750. In the skilled hands of Wayne Rainey, this machine became dominant, allowing Kawasaki to win a third consecutive title. Kawasaki also had success in endurance racing. The French team Kawasaki France Performance earned the company the manufacturer's title 3 years in a row. In 1981 and '82, Kawasaki riders took all the top positions, and '83 was a triumphant year for Kawasaki in the 24 Hours of Le Mans race. In '83, the AR 125 model was released. This two-stroke, liquid-cooled 125 produced 22 horsepower. Paired with a 6-speed gearbox, it made it one of the most popular models of that time. In the mid-'80s, the production of 4-stroke models continued to grow. The Cruiser EN 450 Limited model appeared, whose engine was essentially a restricted, cut-down half of the 900 Sports engine. The biggest sensation came from cruisers with V-shaped engines, dual overhead camshafts, and a balancer shaft system. This model lineup was named Vulcan and was primarily intended to challenge Harley-Davidson in the American market. The first to roll off the assembly line in '85 was the 63 horsepower VN 700. The following year, the more powerful 66 horsepower VN 750 was released. That same year, the top model became the massive 1,470cc cruiser Kawasaki VN 1,500 with an engine power of 72 horsepower and a shaft drive to the rear wheel. A significant milestone in the history of Kawasaki motorcycles was the debut of the ZX-10 in 1987. The motorcycle featured an inline 4-cylinder engine with liquid cooling, a displacement of 997 cubic centimeters, and a power output of 137 horsepower, capable of reaching a top speed of 280 kilometers per hour and accelerating to 100 kilometers per hour in less than 3 seconds. For their domestic market, they developed a 400cc modification of the ZX4. The continuation of this trend is the sport touring motorcycle ZZR 600 with a power output of 98 horsepower, followed by the 1052C 140 horsepower Kawasaki ZDZ 1100. Jeff Ward won numerous motocross titles riding Kawasaki motorcycles. It all started with multiple victories in the 125cc and 250cc classes, and later Ward tamed the beast KX500 and won in the top class in 1989 and 1990. Racing's rising popularity brought the modern ZXR 750 Stinger in 1991. Marketed as the ZXR 750R primarily for foreign markets, the track version produced 128 horsepower, but the version for the domestic Japanese market was limited to 77 since it's not appropriate to race on Japanese roads. In 1993, the ZX 9R Ninja model was developed, followed by the smaller ZX 6R with the ZX-R, 7 the new racing model. Kawasaki dominated the races for 3 years in a row, winning the title in 1991, 1992, and 1993. In 1993, in the Suzuka 8 Hours race, the duo of Scott Russell and Aaron Slight also took the victory. In 1992, Scott Russell, riding a ZX-R 750 prepared by the famous tuner Rob Muzzy, won the American Motorcyclist Association Superbike Championship. Russell and Muzzy teamed up again to compete in the 1993 World Superbike Championship. With the more powerful ZX-R 750R, Russell won the manufacturer's title for Kawasaki in World Superbike. Don't forget the KLX Tour Enduro Series. The 500cc model debuted in Europe in 1991, followed by a 400 ACC version for Japan. The lineup was expanded in 1993 with the KLX 250 Angelo model, which was produced in India. And this was due to the beginning of Kawasaki's cooperation with the company Bajaj. By sharing their technologies, the Japanese gained the opportunity to use cheap labor, and the majority of small displacement vehicles began to be produced at subsidiaries outside the land of the rising sun. During this period, there was a decent demand for retro-style vehicles. In connection with this, in '89, the company released the Kawasaki Zephyr, a classic inline four-cylinder, 400cc, 46 horsepower model with air cooling, whose design fully matched the style of the 70s. Sales of this motorcycle exceeded all forecasts. Since 1990, Kawasaki has exported models with 553cc and 783cc engines, producing 50 and 72 horsepower, respectively. The history of Kawasaki motorcycles also remembers the most powerful member of the Zephyr family, with an engine displacement of 1,063 cubic centimeters, producing 93 horsepower. Unsatisfied with the results, a bolder decision was made. In 1992, the Kawasaki Estrella was produced, a 250cc single cylinder with 20 horsepower. The style of the motorcycle fully reflected the 50s. Kawasaki continued this policy in 1994 by developing the Zephyr, which became the new 400cc 53 horsepower ZRX. For the American and European markets, they developed the classic model of the ZRX 1100 motorcycle. The motorcycle was so popular that in 2000 it replaced the Zephyr with the more powerful 1164cc 122 horsepower ZRX 1200 for the United States and European markets. In 1998, to replace the previous ZRX, they released the muscular 738cc 76 horsepower ZR7. And for fans of pure classics at the same time, they released the 50 horsepower W650 with air cooling styled after the 1960s. An additional model for retro enthusiasts in 1998 was the Kawasaki Drifter, with a V-twin from the Vulcan and styled after the 1940s Indian. In general, the end of the century for Kawasaki was marked by the release of models based on improvements to already existing motorcycles, meaning that the development of new production models had basically quieted down. However, the situation improved with the appearance of the company's new flagship in 2000, the ZX-9R model. At that time, it was the world's most powerful and fastest motorcycle, 178 horsepower and a top speed of 300 km/h. However, despite all the successes, even for the Kawasaki Corporation, it was quite difficult to stay afloat in the realities of the new century with such a high level of competition. That's why a strategic alliance with Suzuki was formed in 2001. The two giants worked together productively, designing and producing high-tech equipment while still maintaining their own sales structures. Next year, the flagship in the cruiser segment will debut. Years Up Kawasaki Volcan 2000 It is equipped with a 2-liter V-twin engine, the largest among production motorcycles at that time. In 2002, Kawasaki returned to MotoGP, the top level of motorcycle racing. The Kawasaki Ninja ZX-RR improved each year in this class. At the 2004 Japanese Grand Prix, Shinya Nakano took third place on the podium. As they progressed, Kawasaki riders finished second at the 2005 Chinese, 2006 Dutch, and 2007 Japanese Grand Prix. On the MotoGP battlefield, this motorcycle was confidently moving forward. In 2004, seeing that few 600cc sport bikes were used for racing, the Ninja ZX-6R's engine displacement was increased to 636 cubic centimeters. Regular motorcyclists liked the increase in power at low and mid-range RPMs, and the bike became the king of the 600s in the real world. In the same year, the Z750 models went into production, which had debuted a year earlier at the Milan Motorcycle Show and were intended to replace the ZR7. And the Z1000, based on the chassis of the sporty ZX6R and with a detuned, retuned engine from the ZX9R. And at a time when everyone was sure that motorcycles couldn't get any more powerful, the ZX10R was released with a claimed 181 horsepower. In 2006, another monster arrived, the Kawasaki ZZR 1400. The basis for this model was a specially designed engine with a displacement of 1,352 cubic centimeters, producing up to 190 horsepower in the first modifications. Subsequently, the maximum power was increased to 200 horsepower, and with the working ram air intake system, this figure went up to 210. In motocross competitions, Kawasaki shows excellent results. In 2007, James Stewart won the Supercross title on his KX 450F, while Ryan Villopoto won the Supercross Lights West title, and Ben Townsley won the Supercross Lights East title on the KX 250FA. All these riders made the KX series from Kawasaki, the leader in all classes. Villopoto moved to the 450cc class in 2009 and dominated. In 2008, the GTR 1000 Sport Tourer was replaced by the GTR 1400, featuring an engine from the Ninja ZX-14, a shaft drive, and standard luggage cases. That same year, the Ninja 250 and KLR 650 models were restyled, something fans had been waiting for decades. The Ninja 250 was a bestseller in many countries. In the new decade, Kawasaki produces a wide range of motorcycles for any purpose, from 125cc scooters to 2-liter cruisers. In 2011, the retro-style W800 model appeared, which was recently complemented by the 900cc classic motorcycles Z900RS and Z900RS Cafe. 2014 was a landmark year for Kawasaki with the debut of the H2R model. Discussions about a modern racing motorcycle prototype with a turbocharger began in 2013, suggesting Kawasaki could update its ZZR 1400 by installing a turbocharged power unit on it. For the first time, a prototype of a modern racing motorcycle with a turbocharger was discussed in 2013. It was assumed that Kawasaki might seriously update its ZZR 1400 by adding a turbocharged power unit. However, Kawasaki chose a different path, and already in September 2014 announced the new model Kawasaki Ninja H2 and H2R, built on the basis of a liter engine. The 4-cylinder inline power unit with a 2-speed supercharger in the H2R version produces 310 horsepower, while in the street-legal H2, this figure is limited to 200. This astonishing power-to-weight ratio immediately allows it to claim the title of the fastest production motorcycle in the world. On June 30, 2016 in Turkey, on the Osman Hashi Bridge, rider Kenan Safoglu sets a speed record of 400 kilometers per hour, accelerating to that speed from a standstill in just 26 seconds. With most of modern Kawasaki technology, you're generally familiar with it, so I won't overload you with information about new models. They'll truly become history a bit later. As for sports achievements, everything is stable here, both in off-road competitions and in the superbike class. Most recently, in 2020, the Meguro K3 model was introduced based on the W800. Rumors suggest Kawasaki may bring back the Meguro brand. How it will actually look, only time will tell. That year, the company launched the revolutionary Urban Hooligan ZH2. The name shows the machine builds on H2R developments, has a turbocharger, and makes 200 horsepower. Is a new turbo mania wave starting among the big four? It's uncertain, as is whether they'll use forced induction, the junior versions of the Z series. Kawasaki is evolving, creating high-tech machines, and will definitely continue to delight motorcycle fans in the future. While making this video, I felt the same admiration as when I worked on Yamaha's history. The perseverance and diligence of the Japanese people are admirable and worth imitating. That's all for now. This was Krasmoto Channel with you. If you enjoyed the video, the best thing you can do is share it with others and subscribe to the channel. I also recommend watching other historical videos on the channel, especially about Yamaha. All the best to you. See you next time.